humanity is not going to go anywhere. You may continue to have development of all kinds, but that development is going to get neutralized every time you have a major disaster. Let me share with you, on the 7th of October, 3rd, 4th of October night, you had a major disaster in Sikkim, a glacial lake outburst. If I ask anyone what is the name of the lake which burst that day, perhaps no one in this hall will be able to tell us. On the 3rd, 4th night this happened, October. It wiped out a huge dam, the Tista Urja Dam. Almost $1 billion worth of investment in that dam got washed away. You may not be aware that one full ammunition point of the Indian Army got washed away. All the ammunition went into Bangladesh. And maybe perhaps we were not even in a position to fight a war for the next few days in Sikkim. But what happened was 3 days later, the Hamas-Israel war broke out. The media, its attention and focus was only on the Hamas-Israel war, not on a major internal security challenge which was there in Sikkim. Disaster management is also internal security. The media happily took away its attention to the more romantic idea of war, which is fought with weapons, not bothering about the war which is fought against the elements in Sikkim, in a place like Sikkim. And that's why today Sikkim is nowhere in the newspapers. If you try and Google the Sikkim tragedy, the Sikkim disaster, you won't find an article on it. And it's a huge thing which has happened in Sikkim, let me tell you. So this should tell you where we are on the map of disaster management in India, despite the fact that the government of India is so deeply ingrained into this and attempting to do so much on it. It is lack of awareness, the lack of public knowledge which is leading to it. Let me spend 2 to 3 minutes on what happened at the Silkyara tunnel. I'm glad that Mr. Chandi Prasad Bhatt is here. Thank you, sir. I belong to the Garhwal Rifles. I'm from Garhwal Rifles. I've studied in Uttarakhand. I'm from Sherwood College in Nainital. So I have everything to do with Uttarakhand only. I'm so glad that I was called up after the tragedy happened, when the 41 people got stuck inside. It was the NDMA which was called up to manage, coordinate and manage the rescue effort. I won't say this is the best form of disaster management. Disaster management is more about preparedness, to make sure that you're prepared. Response is only secondary. But here we were left to do a response because perhaps whatever technology was being used or whatever was not sufficient to meet the challenge which the young fold mountains of the Himalayas present today. So you found this long 4.3 kilometers tunnel, of which more than 2,300 meters had been already prepared from one end, the Silkyara end, and 200 meters from the Silkyara end, 62 meters of the tunnel roof broke and fell down. And it covered the entire space. When a thing like this happens in a tunnel, you will find a maze of debris, which is essentially lots and lots of iron girders, cement and concrete blocks, a mesh of wire and steel pipes, etc. All that falls together down below. It's almost impossible to go through it. The attempt was to try and see if we can bore a hole through this to get to the other end where 41 brave workers were stuck. The perception prevailing in the country and in the media was that these 41 workers are stuck inside a mine, almost inside a mine, but actually not knowing that when the tunnel collapsed, two things happened. The power did not go off inside the tunnel, and the compressor pipe which ran all the heavy duty equipment inside, the compressor pipe did not collapse. As a result, we had oxygen going inside and we had power, we had light inside. And there was a 2-kilometer stretch that the workers had with them. They could even play cricket inside. So they were not stuck in a mine. The issue was, how long can they stay there in that condition? It is through the 4-inch compressor pipe that we managed to induct the initial part of rations, dry rations, a little bit of water, and managed to speak to them using a typical, old world method of speaking through a pipe. Then an effort was made to sink a 6-inch pipe through that debris, which we succeeded in doing. The moment the 6-inch pipe was through, we managed to put a line through it, put a small camera on it, and managed to see the faces of the workers live on the other side. It's a question of then coordinating the entire effort. You could not depend on a single option of just boring horizontally. You had to have different options. And that's where the Honorable Prime Minister's directions came in, where he said, no stone will be left unturned to make sure we get these 41 workers out alive. And that drove the entire government machinery into it. Awareness was increased of the public, confidence was increased of the public through the media, and we had 6 different approaches being addressed at the same time. I won't go into the details, but let me tell you, equipment for it had to be brought from Hirakud, from Gujarat, from Indore. It was heavy, huge drilling equipment, which had to be brought on flatbed rolling stock, railway rolling stock. It had to be brought on trucks. We were awake at the NDMA and the MHA, coordinating the movement, the green corridors which were provided to move all this equipment. Vande Bharat and Shatabdis were shut down to allow this equipment to move simultaneously. While all this was happening, the Border Roads Organization was preparing the roads simultaneously. The principle of simultaneity was used throughout. This is an essential, almost a principle of war. And I still remember while addressing the media, I always said, disaster management is nothing but war. In war, we believe in every department of the government of India coming together, governments anywhere, simultaneously all together. If without all of government approach, you can't be successful. Similarly, disaster management is exactly that. Every department has to play its role and play it proactively without being directed to play it. That's exactly what happened in this particular case. The Ministry of Road Transport and Highways was the nodal organization, clambered on with NDMA, NDRF, different public sector infrastructure companies which came on board. All of them joined into this effort. And it's after 17 days that we could succeed in making that whole. The one last bit of it, which is important for you to remember. Of the 62 meters, 47 meters was done by a mechanical effort of the American auger, which ultimately broke. That the broken parts, the drill, the screw had to be removed, for which equipment had to be flown from Rajamundry and also as far as Amritsar, all the way here again into Rishikesh and taken by road. But ultimately, the effort of removing the broken parts was done by what are called the rat hole miners, right? Not a very dignified term, I'm aware, but they were the ones. Now, who identified these miners? The long and short of it is, one contractor in Dehradun who was aware of them, of their great working capability in enclosed spaces. He's the one who suggested. The best thing was lines were open throughout. Anyone who had a suggestion from anywhere in the world could give us a suggestion, and we would try and implement it. That is how it worked. And we tried n number of methods. Ultimately, when 15 meters were left, we knew that American auger cannot go further. We used the rat hole miners who surprised us. We thought it will take them 4 to 5 days to dig through the 15 meters. They did it in 26 hours. So that's the long and short of it, and I can tell you, almost every angle was thought of by the Government of India, pushed by the Prime Minister, pushed by the PMO, the Ministry of Home Affairs, NDMA, all the other ministries involved. Every one of them was deeply involved in it. And as much as psychosocial support given to the miners who were inside. Their relatives were brought there. There were professional psychosocial doctors who were brought from Rishikesh, who were speaking to the miners throughout by line. That's the level to which disaster management in India has otherwise progressed. So that should give you a lot of confidence that there are examples such as this where the entire government machinery comes together with the private sector, with the public sector, and can achieve a marvel such as this. Thank you so much for listening to me with patience. This was on special request by Mr. Rajan Madekar. I will not spend more time on this since I've already taken too much of your time. Let me now hand over to my co-chair, Professor Vinita Sahai, who will take on from here onwards, and we shall have the first speaker coming on board thereafter. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.